Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new season of the Purposeful Life Show with your host, Adrian Starks. I'm excited to share some new updates of the show with you, starting with a new look, sound, and energy, as well as a variety of guests coming aboard with intriguing topics of conversation. I hope you enjoy the new level of energy that will be brought to the show. Thank you for all of your support since the very beginning in 2019. Wow, it's been 3 years already? Because of you, the Purposeful Life Show is now in the top 5% of all podcasts globally, and we aim to get it into the top 1%. Continue listening to the show and share it with others. You can also now listen to the show on my Facebook page at Adrian Starks, where you can comment in real time and communicate with me about your aha moments. Thank you again for all of your support, and let's make this one hell of a year and be purposeful about doing that. Wishing you all much love and success. Hi, my name is Adrian Starks, and welcome to the Purposeful Life Show on the Champion Up Podcast. This podcast is for the courageous creators wanting to create a life of meaning, adventure, and fulfillment, all while helping to make the world a better place. I'm happy you're here, and if you're new to our show, make sure to give us that 5-star rating and subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. Also, connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Champion Up. It is always that one idea that could be your breakthrough. It's time to step into your courage and believe the champion in you. Well, welcome everyone today to the Purposeful Life Show and the Champion Up Podcast. This is your host, Adrian Starks, and I'm so happy to have you here. Make sure to go to the App Store to get that Champion Up app. Type in the word Champion Up to download it for free to have content in the palm of your hand. Also, give us that 5-star rating and subscribe to the show so you don't miss out on the weekly content that will be coming your way. Today's episode is so empowering. It's called Empowered by Commitment to Spirit, Self, and Service. Doesn't that sound wonderful? Today, we'll be sharing some amazing information and strategies for you to stay on track with your life, your dreams, your goals, your business, and your dharma, while also sharing an inspiring story of how one man came to remember his truth, commit to spirit, self, and service, and follow his heart in his mission to empower inspirational and children's authors around the world. Joining me today on the program to share the messages of empowerment and commitment to spirit, self, and service is Jonathan Masiulionis, the president of Empowered Publicity. Jonathan, can you say hello to our audience today?
Hello, audience today.
Hello, audience today. Welcome to the show, Jonathan. And see, Jonathan here for nearly 2 decades. Jonathan has been helping authors, speakers, coaches, healers, and even professional wrestlers promote their talent and expand their audiences. His ability to highlight the best of what an artist brings to the table is uniquely exceptional. With the power of enthusiasm and determination, Jonathan is a seasoned professional at taking ideas and turning them into realities. And that's why Jonathan is on this show today. Jonathan, how are you doing today?
Adrian, my brother, I am doing absolutely fabulous. Thank you very much for having me on your podcast. And I do want to say, first of all, congratulations on all of your recent success, the launch of this fantastic program. And I actually hear, and this is a little birdie that told me this, since it is the springtime, actually, you start to see little birdies out there. A little birdie tweeted at me and said, have you actually experienced the poly cotton blend of the new Champion Up t-shirts? They are some of the most comfortable ones on planet Earth. So I don't know if that little birdie was telling the truth, but you know what? I saw the pictures of the t-shirts, and I know that you put quality and love into everything that you do. So yes. I look forward to receiving one of those shirts soon.
You're going to be getting one of those shirts, that's for sure, Jonathan, because you are a champion and you are a courageous creator out here in life. And that's why we've got you on the show. And I'm so excited for this episode today to be with Jonathan and to share this amazing man with the audience here. So, Jonathan, before we get started into some good content here, can we share with the audience a little bit about what you do exactly?
I can do my part to encapsulate it because really it's more about an energy and a message more so than quote unquote what I do. I am a publicist for inspirational and children's authors, but this really is a deeper and more heartfelt meaning to me because my purpose is here for the children. And one of my life's goals is to open up a children's hospice for terminally ill children out in La Jolla, California. So, Adrian, I've had people come up to me recently and have said, well, you've got a cool niche, right? And, you work with children's authors and inspirational authors. And that's all true. But I'm not the typical publicist. I'm not the three-piece suit kind of guy. I don't live in New York City, not that there's anything wrong with that. I really lead everything that I do, including my life and my business, with my heart. So I really like to classify Empowered Publicity as PR from the heart.
PR from the heart. That is wonderful. And the fact that you're coming from the heart, that's what makes this a really good, open and passionate conversation. And speaking of the heart, Jonathan, what inspired you to really want to do this kind of work with Empowered Publicity, your company?
This was several years in the making before it actually took flight nearly 5 years ago. I had the blessing of founding and hosting a very popular wrestling radio show. We're actually recording this interview on WrestleMania weekend, so it's kind of like a warm feeling in my heart. But for 13 years, I was the host of a very popular wrestling radio show called Monday Night Mayhem.
Yes,
had the opportunity
I remember that.
Travel across the country, 5 WrestleMania experiences, interviewing some of the top names in professional wrestling, sports, and entertainment. Even had a birthday special with Ice-T and his wife Coco. She was celebrating her birthday. It's like we actually had a birthday special with Coco. Dennis Haskins, who was Mr. Belding from Saved by the Bell, became a good friend of mine for many years. So this was before, the show was created in 2002. When it was at my former college radio station, and it transitioned into becoming one of the first ever wrestling podcasts back in the fall of 2004 into the beginning of 2005. So this was before Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, any form of social media. It was just grassroots. You tell a friend, you tell a friend, you tell a friend, you tell a friend. So I was doing everything from, getting the word out, when social media began to be created, promoting the show, booking the show, putting the questions together for the show. I mean, I was basically a one-man operation, but I also kind of had a little bit of control issues at the same point. I really had difficulties delegating because I was so passionate about what I was doing. And Monday Night Mayhem served its purpose for a long period of time, but it's interesting because people ask me, when I look back on Monday Night Mayhem, what was the greatest moment or experience? And it was actually being introduced to the folks at Oshai Children's Hospital here in Buffalo. Then I should say Women and Children's Hospital of Buffalo, and meeting Dennis DiPaolo, who you're quite familiar with, of course, the owner of Elio DiPaolo's restaurant here in Buffalo. And if it wasn't for those two relationships, you see how life has a way of working itself out and coming full circle, where one of my life's purposes with the Children's Hospital for Terminally Ill Children, I saw the first vision of that by visiting the Child Life Department at Women's and Children's Hospital. And just to mention briefly for your listeners, a Child Life Department is, and should say provides, emotional support and entertainment for children that are going through oncology treatments, who are going through cancer, dialysis treatments, and recovering from surgeries. So they bring in athletes, professional wrestlers, musicians, speakers, authors, theater performers, and they all basically bring up the energy and the spirits of the kids there to take their mind off of what they were, of what they might be going through. So as soon as Monday Night Mayhem was concluded, this is really around the time where my spiritual awakening began. Shortly after my grandmother made her transition is really when the awakening sort of fueled. I did a health, wellness, spiritually aligned and inspirational based radio show and podcast called Soul Luminous Radio. Mm-hmm. And that's where I had the opportunities to connect with Wayne Dyer's family, Anita Moorjani, the New York Times bestselling author of Dying to Be Me, Jack Canfield, Mira Kelly. So I had all of these quote unquote new thought leaders, transformational gurus, and New York Times bestselling authors. And I was navigating through quite a bit of stuff on Mind of Things, a lot of pain, a lot of fear, a lot of trauma. But yes, I was still persevering. I was still moving forward at that point. And I stopped doing both of those shows because they weren't in alignment. Okay. But I'll just mention that how really the seeds of Empowered Publicity, then Empowered by John, came to be. I was at the Hay House I Can Do It event in Toronto back in March of 2014, if I'm not mistaken. Is just this amazing weekend, being a part of so much wonderful energy. And I knew that I wanted to do something. I'd also worked in the collections industry for 13 years. So it's a very dense kind of energy, a very abrasive kind of energy. I knew I was there to, be the light in a very kind of perceived dark industry. So to kind of encapsulate all that, Adrian, this has been such a beautiful journey over the course of the past 5 years. But the name Empowered, I actually have to give some props and courtesy to one of my first client. It's now a husband and wife team. He's a sound healer out in the Toronto, Ontario area. And I believe he was the one who had said, empowered by John. His name is Anthony Tallata, by the way. If you put an Anthony Tallata on YouTube, you're going to find some awesome, awesome music, some awesome sound healing stuff as well. So it's just, I really feel that from that point, been nearly 5 years that I've really been led on a beautiful magic carpet ride, and things are just starting to get better and better now, which is amazing.
Amazing, brother. That sounds like such a wonderful journey for you. Did you ever have a moment when you thought that this that you're doing now may not work out, or that you should return back to what you were going to be doing before? Because I think people all have that, right?
Yeah, for all those entrepreneurs out there, you probably have, like a list of towels, right? Or I should say a number of towels, like 5 million, it's kind of like I just
Tissue,
saw Rent.
Everything.
Yeah, I just saw Rent at the Shades Performing Arts Center here in Buffalo. And there's 500,600 minutes, right? So I think that's probably the number of towels that most entrepreneurs have that they would want to throw in, quote unquote. But honestly, straight up, Adrian, there were many times where I questioned myself. I don't necessarily think it was about doubt. I do believe that there was doubt. There was fear that I had to clear out and move through. And one of the things I do want to share with your listening audience is the importance of taking the time. And we're going to talk more about this, about commitment. Be committed to your healing, because especially when it comes to your business, your relationships, your love, all of that levels up when you take the time to do the internal work, whatever that necessarily looks or feels or sounds like for you.
Okay. So you said being committed to your healing, and that's what the question I was going to ask you coming up next. You read my mind, about what does it mean to be committed to yourself? So you're saying that we're going to go through those phases in our businesses or in our personal lives where we're going to get some scars and get some wounds. We're going to get hurt. But when we're committed to the healing portion of our lives, that is how things begin to take place.
100%. Okay. And, it's very easy to, I felt this for a good period of time right now, and it's the strongest it's ever been, that your external life really is a reflection of what's happening on the inside. So if you're seeing a lot of stress and drama and chaos happening around you, right? It's, people might, blame other people. Blame is something, projection. Those are two things that will not get you anywhere in any way, shape, or form. They will only serve a purpose to a certain point. Every single person that you come into contact with in some way, shape, or form is a mirror, a representation of yourself, right?
Yes.
So again, it's just a matter of taking that time, whatever that necessarily looks like, because if you're wondering how, people are extremely successful, and doing things that may defy logic, or like, how are they doing all this stuff during the course of a day? They only have 24 hours like I do. Especially with this new paradigm right now, there's clear transparency, right? So you're at a point right now where you have to do things the right way, treating yourself with respect, treating other people with respect. So things true. Along the lines of that, because if something becomes misaligned, whether it be within yourself, within a relationship, the universe is going to show it right back to you very clearly. So things that you were able to get away with beforehand in terms of, well, maybe I could, make the money that I wanted to, but I had to kind of be a little disingenuous to do it, or not be in full integrity and in full truth. That stuff doesn't work at all in any way, shape, or form. So it's kind of like a very interesting spiritual science experiment. You know what works now, right? So continue to do that. And if you kind of fall back into an old pattern or an old limiting belief, just, as the Aaliyah song says, dust yourself off and try again. But it's also important to be very, very gentle on yourself as well, especially if you're an empath and an entrepreneur. It's very easy to beat the crap out of yourself and say, I'm not doing things right. I'm not enough. Just all those sorts of, things that your head would want you to believe. And when you spend more time in your heart, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you're connecting your head with your heart, that's when the magic happens. That's when the gold happens.
I like that one. Okay. So connecting your head with your heart. That is where the magic happens when it comes to really being in alignment with yourself and your business. And you mentioned too about the effect of what you do. You put out there into the environment will come back to you. And I believe in this concept too, Jonathan, that whatever the cause is, the effect is already wrapped up inside of that. So we have to be very mindful of what we're giving out there. And so we have elaborated here currently on two concepts. We talked about today, the show being about empowered by commitment to our listeners. And what we mean is empowered by commitment to spirit, self, and service. Jonathan has talked about service a little bit. He just touched base on self. Remember that being connected with your head and your heart. And now we want to talk a little bit more about, let's talk about the spirit portion of this, Jonathan. So for the entrepreneurs that are going on this path, a lot of them will forget about the spirit, right? They're thinking, physical, mental, emotional, but they leave the spirit behind. So what can they do to start making sure they don't make that mistake down the road?
It's very easy to say, I cleaned up my diet. I'm healthy. It's very easy to say, I went to the gym and I was clanging and banging, or I did that, tree pose of, yoga. So I'm totally spot on, right? It is a matter of, and again, it depends on how this necessarily resonates for yourself. For some people, it's meditation. I'm starting to get into silent meditation, which is something, we were kind of joking in the Champion a Purposeful Life show green room, as I'll actually call it, right?
It was a green room,
Adrian is doing so well with the show, man. He had honey roasted almonds in the green room. Let me tell you, when you are a guest on his program, he treats you first class. This is like the WrestleMania podcast.
For the courageous creators.
Coin that in.
That's because Jonathan's a courageous creator. That's why.
So, just to be in meditation, to be in stillness, to be out in nature, especially with the weather getting better, spring, especially if you're here in the Northeast, sometimes you're not necessarily able to be outside as often as you would want, but it's really listening to your inner guidance.
Okay. Guidance.
I think that the old paradigm is shut yourself down, right? Whether it be your father, your mother, your sister, your brother, your teacher in fourth grade that said, you can't express yourself. You can't express your emotion. You can't feel your feelings. You can't allow yourself to be vulnerable. It is so important to take the time to be intimate with yourself. Very, very, very important because again, for us brothers out there, it's very easy to believe in just the physical form of intimacy when you are with your life partner, with your beloved, right? But no, there's a lot of old paradigms and old archetypes that are being broken down right now. So some people might be wondering, okay, let me get this straight. So if I want to have a successful business, right, how can meditation help me? Or how can, reconnecting with my inner child
That's something that I needed help on. When I did that, Jonathan, the interconnect with the connection with the inner child, that improved things for me. But continue on.
Yeah. So, and this is, one of the stories I'll just actually mention because I still talk about Toys R Us as if it's still in the present tense, even though it closed nearly a year ago. Adrian was out here in the Buffalo area where I reside currently right now. And, we actually found, Care Bears that were in alignment with us. Mine was my favorite Care Bear growing up, one of the Care Bear cousins, Bright Heart Raccoon. And Adrian actually found a Care Bear called Champ Bear. I can't make this stuff up.
You're not making that up.
And and it was just such an amazing experience because there still is that 5-year-old Adrian inside of you. There is that 5-year-old Jonathan within myself. One of the things that I really feel has actually helped me in terms of my business. Growing up, I used to have a Fisher-Price old school record player, the kind that was in like the little suitcase, and you pop open the suitcase, you put your records on there. So a couple of years ago, you know what I did? I went to JCPenney's. I bought a Crossley record player, which is kind of like the adult version of the Fisher-Price record player. I got some of the same records that I had, like Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA, An American Tale soundtrack, one of Cyndi Lauper's albums, right? So these are things like when you are fully in alignment, and this is a big thing that I want to share with all of your listeners. Really important is that when you are in alignment, you are attracting, you are allowing. When you are in physical, emotional, spiritual alignment, the finances happen as the byproduct. Now, don't get me wrong. There's still work. There's still necessary guided action steps that you must take. It's not like the infant baby Jesus is going to drop off a $5 million check on your doorstep and say, here you go, congratulations, namaste and satnam and all that in between, right? No, right? But I can tell you this from personal experience because you're talking to someone who literally, several years ago had manifested things along the lines of an eviction notice in his hand, a perceived diagnosis of testicular cancer. So I kind of manifested the opposite end of the equation because that's where my energy was. It was on fear, lack, scarcity, doubt, and I co-created experiences in my life that basically reflected that. So now I kind of, I've told the universe, okay, I know that I don't need to be clobbered over the head with a baseball bat anymore to get my life lessons, right? So it's a matter of just, again, doing the right things, not just necessarily doing the right things for yourself, but doing the right things for others and have that be in alignment too. Because, relationships, we're all learning about relationships every day. We're not, perfect connoisseurs of relationships. We're still learning about that. But the more you take the time to perfect your craft, to perfect your alignment and have it be stronger and stronger and stronger, don't be surprised if you have that extra zero in the bank account.
That's always good.
Or the extra, yeah. But this is the thing. It's not just about the money. You can have such a rewarding, successful life. And it's just like you get to the point where the money's there and it's great, but you don't care. It's not the driving, motivating force. Right. It's loving yourself. It's loving others. It's respecting yourself. It's respecting others. It's just doing the right thing no matter what the result is of what's in it for me. You're focused on more how may I be of service to others and how may I love myself more.
I love that. How can I be of service to others and how can I love myself more? And this is why Jonathan is creating such a major impact with helping other authors, inspirational speakers around the world, even including myself. And so Jonathan is really powerful when it comes to understanding the commitment portion of the spirit, the self, and the service. Jonathan, what words of wisdom can you provide to our audience that can help them to take that initial first step into the unknown of doing what they love to do and serve the world?
The words that come to mind, someone who came onto my path several years ago, actually, the pleasure of meeting her several times, interviewing her. Her name is Anita Moorjani. She's the New York Times bestselling author of Dying to Be Me. Anita's story briefly is her father had passed away, and I believe her best friend passed away. I think both of them had cancer. So what Anita did is she tried to prevent herself from getting cancer by doing all the right things, right? Like eating organic, drinking from glass, not using plastic, having all the supplements. But fear was motivating her decisions. So lo and behold, Anita got cancer. And her cancer progressed to where it was stage 4. She had a near-death experience. She went over to the other side. She saw her father. She saw her best friend. They said, it's not your time. You can go if you want. But she knew that if she would come back, that, she would be coming back and really helping people remember about the importance of loving themselves unconditionally. And within 6 weeks of coming out of the NDE, no trace of cancer in her body. So now her movie's actually her story's being turned into a movie that's being put together by Ridley Scott, I believe, of Gladiator fame. Mm-hmm. I share Anita's story not only just to inspire you, but I remember seeing her in one of her talks, and she used the words, live your life fearlessly.
Live it fearlessly.
Many of us, there's a difference between, being fearless and reckless.
Yes.
Reckless is just, doing things like, driving through 4 straight red lights on your way to the grocery store. Like, that's reckless. All right. But fearless is moving through the fear, being present with the fear, not stuffing it down. It's kind of like you're having this silent, invisible conversation saying, fear, I love you. I know that you are a gift. I know that there's something on the other side of this in the process as well, too. Because people will always get either stuck or afraid of the fear. And one of the things I'm starting to learn is that the fear, if it comes up, it has something to share. It as a message. And there's always something on the other side of that, whether it be, a new client, whether it be a new relationship, whether it be loving yourself more, whether it be the releasing of an old pattern or old trauma that you were hanging on to. Right. So really what comes to mind is to live your life fearlessly, but to also to love yourself, to love yourself. And those are, I mean, there's a couple of the things that actually come to mind too, but I think it's just a matter of just allowing, if I can just mention 3, if I may, also allow yourself to receive the necessary help, the necessary guidance. It's okay if you don't know all the answers to everything. Like, when it comes to this publicity work, like, I'm still learning. I don't classify myself a connoisseur, even though I've been doing this for 5 years. There are people that have been doing this for, 20, 30 years that may be, much more efficient than myself, but I'm just enjoying the ride. I'm being very gentle with myself. And yes, the advice that I give to your listeners here on the Purposeful Life show with the Champion Up podcast, I'm giving to myself as well.
I love that. And you mentioned the word fearlessly, and I want to elaborate on that too. And like Jonathan mentioned, it's not being reckless. And when we're thinking in terms of fearlessly, let's separate and say fearing less. How about you move through the fear and you find less things to fear and find more things to focus on, and then you can move through that process. And so this is important for us to do this when we're trying to step into the unknown, because we need to step into the unknown in order to grow, in order to expand, in order to learn. And Jonathan, this is such an amazing experience here, and I would love our audience to be able to be in contact with you. Do you have some information for them to reach out to you or to find out about anything that you're putting together in the future?
I absolutely do. Yes. First of all, you can check out the official Empowered Publicity website by logging on to empoweredpublicity.com. You can connect with me on Facebook at Empowered Publicity, Twitter at Empowered_PR. My personal Instagram page is my full name, Jonathan Masiulionis. One of the things that I will briefly mention is that if people want to be able to connect with me in a setting similar to this, every Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, and every Thursday evening at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, I host the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight Series, where I have the blessing of interviewing children's authors and illustrators from around the world to be able to help them share their inspiring stories and the release of their new books. People will ask me, what do you do at Empowered Publicity? And one of the things that really comes to mind is I love, just like you, Adrian, you've got a very good gift with this. I love helping people to share their stories because, when we share our stories, that's when healing happens. That's when real magic happens. And if you're further along in the process of something, if there's something that you healed from, there might be someone that's just starting to go through those initial steps. And you can help that person or persons to maybe make things a little bit easier on themselves versus, create maybe a little bit of something that was maybe, a little bit more complex, several things that you had to move through. So it's kind of like whatever experience that you went through, it's not in vain because, some people may say that you turn your test into a testimony. I wouldn't phrase it like that, but with a little bit of a similar resonance that, it's just very important that we're doing this sort of work. And there's just so much opportunity to be able, if I may mention to your listening audience, to those of you who are inspirational and children's authors, there is so much opportunity to be able to get your message out there, to share it with the media, whether it be with television, whether it be with syndicated radio shows, whether it be with magazines, podcasts. There's so much opportunity. Going to schools, sharing your children's books in front of, schools across the country. Really, there is a cornucopia. I'll use a Thanksgiving reference right before Easter. How about it? There's a cornucopia of opportunities right there. And to conclude this last question that you had mentioned, Adrian, is that it's so important, no matter if a person decides to work with me or another publicist or an assistant, whatever the case might be, It's important that there is an alignment. Your heart right now will not lead you astray in any way, shape, or form. Your heart will give you that message to say, this person's treating me with respect. They're right for myself. So one of the parting shots that I can actually give to your listening audience is to just really, again, take the time to pay attention to your inner guidance, especially when it comes to working relationships as well, because the universe always brings you the right people at the right time if you're paying attention, if you're listening, if you're open, and if you're allowing yourself to receive.
Excellent. And this is why you're on the show as a courageous creator, Jonathan. And to end this out, we're going to do a quick question here for the courageous creators. What could happen in one's life when someone begins to give full commitment to themselves, their spirit, and their services to their chosen fields of interest? What could happen to them?
There's a gentleman that I became friends with several years ago. Haven't talked to him recently. Maybe this is just a reminder for me to connect with him. His name is LeGrand. He used to work with Oprah Winfrey, one of the producers behind the scenes of the Oprah Winfrey Show. And him and I had connected a couple of years ago. And he knew that, one of my desires was to head out to California, which is happening for me in about 2 years. And he called me his co-billionaire of love. Now I was still kind of moving through stuff at that point, and I said, let me get this straight. A billionaire of love. I think that you understand the direction in which I'm headed. So you're asking if you're taking the time to feel, as Abraham and Esther Hicks share, tapped in, tuned in, and turned on. If you're doing that, you're doing all the right things. You're loving yourself. You're being gentle and compassionate. You're being respectful of others. You're placing your energies and your intentions on how may I be of service before what's in it for me, keeping things balanced, keeping in alignment. Just imagine that your life is like a Disney movie. Just imagine if you are a male, imagine that you meet Jasmine, right? And if you're feminine and listening to the podcast, just imagine that you meet your Aladdin. And remember what Aladdin says, and this is a perfect way to conclude. Remember, there's that scene in Aladdin where Aladdin tells Jasmine, "Do you trust me?" That's a message from the universe. So
do you trust me?
Do you trust me? If Adrian and I are sharing with you that if you're doing all these right things, you're allowing yourself to be committed to yourself, to service, and to spirit, whatever that necessarily looks like for you, your life can be a Disney movie. The universe is saying, trust me. And it's a matter of just moving through those remaining fears, distortions, and illusions about trust. Because, a lot of people have got trust issues, those little mini Great Walls of China. We all have those or had those in some way, shape, or form. So yes, you can be a co-billionaire of love. You can succeed in your chosen field. It's just a matter of, again, being very dedicated, very patient, very gentle, nurturing, loving, as well as continue to take those necessary guided action steps. I wouldn't be surprised, Adrian, if a lot of your listeners, as I'm putting this intention, this isn't just for you, this isn't just for myself. This really is the best year of our entire life, especially when we head into 2020. There is so much success and opportunity that is there for everyone right now. There is 7 billion people on this planet, maybe even more, right? So if you are a coach,
still counting,
and still counting, of course, if you are a children's author, inspirational author, coach, healer, and you can say, well, there's other healers out there. Why would someone want to work with me? Why wouldn't someone want to work with you? Right? Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't someone want to read your book?
Why not?
Or go to see or go to see and hear your talk? There are people that are going through so much difficulties right now, whether it be illness, sickness, disease, divorce, famine, natural disasters. People need messages of hope, kindness, compassion, courageousness, love, healing. They need this now more than ever. So why not? But again, the question is, do you trust me? From the universe.
That is the question. And that is the question. Everyone, do you trust me? And that is your universe. That is yourself asking that. And if you can answer yes, you're on your way. If you can't answer yes right now, then keep listening and you will find out that way. Jonathan, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you again, my brother. We learned a lot from you, and I'm just very excited for what's coming up with Empowered Publicity and all the lives you'll be touching on a daily basis. Thank you for being on the show.
I cannot wait to see you back in Buffalo. I cannot wait to be up in Seattle at some point in time soon. And to all of your listening audience, continue to support Adrian. He is one of the most beautiful souls, has one of the kindest hearts that I've ever worked with, that I've actually ever known in this lifetime or many lifetimes. And this man is here for big things. He's got a big purpose as well, too. And he really believes in what it is that he's doing. Adrian has not paid me to give this endorsement, by the way. This is something that comes straight from my heart.
Yep.
But this podcast, this is something that's providing a lot of great content, a lot of quality, a lot of love in the process. So continue to enjoy this magic carpet ride that Adrian is on with you in the process. So Adrian, I look forward to doing this up again soon. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Sending much love and many blessings to you and to your loved ones as well in the spring and the summer and beyond.
You're welcome, brother. And to you as well, Jonathan, and to everyone else, remember to be empowered by commitment to your spirit, to self, and to your service. Until then, I encourage you all to be that courageous creator in your life. This is the Purposeful Life Show and the Champion Up Podcast with myself, Adrian Starks, and thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed our podcast today, don't forget to give us that 5-star rating and subscribe to the show so you don't miss out on the powerful life-changing content on future episodes. Also, make sure to go to championup.net for even more life-changing content. Until then, I encourage you to be the courageous creator in your life.